I'm eating chocolate.
Want to share?
I'm trying to eat my chocolate.
I share. I share!
I don't want to.
Hey guys, it's Jessie and Stacy with Chapter Tricks, and today we'll be going over the first 8 chapters in Straight Jacket by Meredith Towbin. Hopefully you guys have gotten your copies by now, and you will be joining us for the chapter by chapter discussion. If you have not read this book, then do not watch this video. Go get your own copy. Go get your own copy.
Go get your own copy.
If you don't want to be spoiled, do not watch. So if you have not gotten your book and you're so curious about what this book is about, Jessica's going to go ahead and tell you about the synopsis.
Okay. So it's about this boy and this girl who are stuck in a mental institution, both for varying reasons. And the boy is convinced that he is an angel, and he is sent down to do something with the girl named Anna, and he has to convince Anna that he is in fact an angel, and all the craziness that ensues from that.
Chapter 1 starts with Caleb, and in this chapter we first get to jump right into him being in his heaven episode, to where his body goes completely stiff and then his mind wanders off to heaven. In heaven we meet his guardian, which is Samuel. We get to see Caleb's studio, and we get to see like the common area where the angels meet in heaven. Samuel in this chapter, boom, gets right into it, gives Caleb his mission. There's 3 parts to his mission. One is to get Anna away from her parents, convince her that she is important, and get her to write a book, because her book is going to be so important that it's going to change the world. So far in this chapter, what I thought was, I don't think Caleb is an angel so far, because there is a line in the book where he states that I used to think heaven was all bright white, but it's not, it's bright colors. So it makes me think that there was a time that he wasn't a part of heaven, and for some reason when I think of angels of always being in heaven.
Yes, but it is possible.
I know it is possible, but so far I'm just not getting that angel vibe from him.
I concur.
Moving right along to chapter 2.
So in chapter 2, it switches over to Anna's perspective, which I really like. I love books that switch from perspective to perspective. Mm-hmm. And she is watching Caleb while he is in his catatonic state. And it's very creepy. Mm-hmm. He's just sitting there not moving. She said it doesn't even look like he's breathing. And she's just watching him, which is weird on her part as well. And quickly moves on to group therapy. Says that she is very new, it's her first week, and she finds out that Caleb is in her class. He's completely not catatonic at this point. He takes a very keen interest in her as well, so they're kind of just, you know, staring at each other. Immediately in the group therapy, the therapist asks them to say something that they know is true, and Caleb mentions that he is an angel. So I thought it was pretty significant that he is very open about being an angel. I thought it was going to be something secret he only told Anna. I thought there was some pretty good tension already. Mm-hmm. I can feel it a little bit, feel the vibes. Anna is a little bit of a wimp, and I'm hoping she grows some lady balls. And I'm still a little unsure as of whether or not he is an angel. I have not bought it yet.
See, I really liked Anna in this chapter. I feel like she's having the typical girl reaction to this guy. She sees him, she thinks he's hot, but she's keeping her distance as he's staring at her. She likes it, but she also notes that it's weird. I think that the group therapy scene was the perfect way to start introducing some of the other characters in the ward. We get to meet Dr. Blackwell.
He's the therapist.
And he seems really, really nice, but when he got to Caleb, he seemed like he got very hostile all of a sudden. And his name, Blackwell, makes me think that something's going to be happening with him.
That's a good
later
connection.
In the book. I think that he might come into play.
See,
later
in my
on
head,
the story.
that makes sense, but in my head, it was because Caleb was the only one who wasn't trying to make any progress. Like,
True.
with the guy that was, like, slapping his legs and stuff, like, he was trying. Caleb just like, I'm an angel.
Shit. Yeah, George likes to count. That's another character we get to meet. He likes to count. He doesn't like when things are uneven. We get to meet Gertrude, which is an older lady. She sees unicorns. She thinks she has a unicorn, which, hey, she would be like my best friend. I don't see why she's there.
I love unicorns.
And there is Chrissy. She's kind of like the lazy whore of the group. She doesn't like to do anything, and she likes to sleep around with a bunch of people, and she also thinks Caleb is hot.
I really didn't like Chrissy's character, but I think Chrissy's character is not supposed to be well liked. But she is a friend with Anna. Now let's move on to chapter 3.
Every other perspective book, which I didn't realize until chapter 3. I'm kind of like,
what a loser.
We also get more into Ethan's character, another member of group, where we didn't really, he kind of got cut off at the end of the chapter, so we get to know that he's a paranoid schizophrenic. At this point, I'm liking the writing, I'm liking the quotes within it, it's got a nice flow to it. but there's some ruts in it as well. It'll be like a really nice, well put, well thought out line, and then right after it there'll be a really cheesy, really poorly written line. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I think what it is probably this is one of Meredith's first books from her writing, that's what I'm guessing. And I'm guessing that she is actually probably a pretty good writer, but then at the same time wants one of her first books to sell.
In this chapter, Anna and Caleb kind of have their first interaction with each other. They start talking. Anna kind of gets Caleb to try to admit that he's not an angel, and when he doesn't admit it, she kind of gets mad and storms off. I thought this was a little immature over her, but then I realized it's because she really wants to like him. She wants to let that guard down that I was talking about earlier, where she was like, he's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if she thought if she could get him to admit that he was crazy, it would be okay for her to like him. Since she couldn't get him to do that, it just made her mad.
It really reminded me of Edward and Bella with the tension and like how they were so annoyed with each other at first in the biology room. Circled a quote, and it's talking about Caleb trying not to stare at Anna, and it says, "It was like being in a field and forcing yourself to look away from the one flower that was surrounded by a million dull weeds trying to choke it." The trying to choke it part really got to me, because it's like, it's not only is she in this sea of people where she's completely different, she's in the sea of people trying to bring her down. In chapter 4, it's Visitor's Day. It's Anna's first Visitor's Day since she's been in the mental ward, and her parents come to visit, both of them do. It turns out that she's in the mental ward because she threatened to kill herself because her parents are both verbally and physically abusive to her, which I absolutely hate. Totally makes me sick. Her parents, like, basically bash on her, and her get really upset and really threatened, and she just wants them to go away. And Caleb watches this whole thing and figures out why Anna is in there, because she threatened to kill herself. And I kind of didn't like that. He found out in such an easy way. Like, I felt like that was going to be a big reveal later on, and he kind of got to find out the same time we got to find out. So it was a little anticlimactic for me. He was sitting there and he was very protective, like squeezing his hands, like you can tell he was getting very anxious about it. And at this point, I definitely knew it was going to be a romance book. It's not one of those books where it's the plot that comes first. It's definitely the romance. That's the driving force of this book.
This was a chapter that really nailed it for me, and that I was really starting to enjoy the book, is because seeing the effects that Anna's parents have on her really like hit a chord with me. I think the author did a very nice job of writing about the panic attack and the slow, drawn out process by it, and it really made you feel very sympathetic towards her and what she was going through, because this wasn't just like as soon as she saw her parents she started to feel uneasy. It was like the moment the thought entered her brain that I'm releasing my parents again, she has a straight panic attack. Unlike Jesse, I really did like the connection between Caleb and Anna that they had. Just like that he was paying attention to the effects that her parents were having on her, and he could just tell by the way they were talking to her, by the way she was reacting, that the situation wasn't good. And Anna, realizing he knows that he knows, kind of made her feel better.
I did like that.
Yeah, because I think if you were in a situation to where you were keeping such a big secret like that, secret your entire life, I feel like the act of telling somebody would be almost impossible to do, especially if you kept it so secret so long. So just to have somebody know, I think is like a big step for her, and for her to be okay that he knows is another big step for her.
See, that's why I felt like since it was such a big thing for her, I wanted to see
It play out.
Yeah, her actually come to terms with it and say it herself.
At this point, I really like the author's ability to describe a person's feelings. It's very, very up there on the scale of writing.
Yeah, it's not too descriptive, but it definitely gets the point across.
It hits
puts
the
you
points.
In
Yeah, and it makes you feel that with the character. Moving right along to chapter 5. I also really like this chapter because Caleb finally tells Anna his mission. Not finally, like he reveals it very early on in the story. Like he reveals his mission, that she's his mission, that he needs to get her away from parents. I hate when these girls in these books, when they hear some crazy point of information, automatically believe it and don't get mad or ask any questions. I love Anna's reaction. She gets mad, she thinks he's crazy, she thinks he's lost it, and she doesn't want to talk to him anymore, and she runs away. And I love that reaction. I think that's the perfect reaction you should have if somebody tells you something along those lines.
That they are an angel and their mission is to protect you.
Yeah, and I feel like any other reaction would have felt fake and would have ruined the momentum that the book had picked up at this point in my mind. I love how she's being smart about him. I'm really starting to like Anna and her character. I sympathize with her. I feel like she's weak but with strong undertones, and I'm really hoping that those strong undertones will come out eventually. How she's not blinded by puppy love, so I'm liking it.
Really?
Liking her a lot.
Because at the end of this chapter, my note was starting to get a little bit too insta-lovish for me.
Caleb is insta-loving on her.
And
he is, very badly.
She is too a little bit, but it's not as strong. In chapter 6, it is Anna's first visit with Dr. Blackwell that we get to see. One-on-one visit, yeah. Goes up to his office in an elevator, and a panic attack almost starts to happen because for some reason that she has not mentioned yet, she is very afraid of tight spaces. When she gets out, she starts to feel a little bit better, but she starts to talk about this with her doctor, and this is when he actually mentions that it is panic attacks, and just an overwhelming sense of relief floods through Anna because her entire life she hasn't mentioned it, and she thought that she was just crazy and that this was she was the only person that this was happening to, and even the fact that it had a name made her feel better, which I thought this was kind of weird because an American 18-year-old, I feel like, would have heard of a panic attack before.
I really like this chapter too because from somebody who used to suffer from crippling panic attacks, I don't anymore now that I'm older, but when I was a teenager I did. I kind of had the same reaction. You would think of panic attacks, but when you're younger and you think of a panic attack, you think of somebody having a panic attack as them being like outrageous, running around, screaming. You don't really think of it as the internal aspect with like the heart beating, with the cramping up, not being able to think straight, and it feels kind of like you're in a blurry world.
Yeah, maybe that's why I knew about him so early too, is because you used to have him.
Yeah.
So I feel like just everybody should know about him, but I guess that's not the case.
Yeah, so with this chapter, when Anna finds out about the panic attacks and the relief that she feels, I think the author did a very good job of it because I had the same reaction when I found out.
She did a very good job describing it, yeah.
Yeah, because I had the same reaction when I found out panic attacks were not something weird that was just happening to me. It was actually a common thing, that it was a panic attack and that other people did suffer from it. And that knowing that it was a panic attack, I think, was a big step in helping me overcome it myself.
That's what they say is when, because Gina has had panic attacks before too, and they say that if you can tell yourself that you're having a panic attack, it can really calm you down.
Yeah, because when you're having a panic attack and you don't know what's happening to you,
It just makes you
that
more.
fear kind of like fuels your panic attack. And so knowing that it's okay that it happens to other people is a huge relief. And I feel so happy for Anna at the end of this chapter that she finally knows what it is. She finally can get some relief from it, because at this point, listening to all the bad things and all the bad emotions she was having, because at the beginning of the chapter she talks about how all these bad things are running through her head. And you know how bad it is when you have one thing you're stressing over. There is situations where you have several and it just makes it awful. So
Right, you know her life is bad if she's threatening to kill herself.
right, so when she has this little bit of relief, I feel so happy for her. But I do want to mention that Dr. Blackwell, in this chapter, one of the first questions he asks her is what patients you're associating with. So I think that he knows that she's associating with Caleb and was trying to get some of it out of her, because I think there's something up with that doctor.
You keep making all these connections with the doctor that I didn't even notice. I was
Yeah,
just
I think there's
focusing
something
on
up with
her.
him.
In this chapter, she also goes into one of the episodes in which her parents abused her, and it was,
Vaguely, a little bit.
yeah, it was over meatloaf.
Oh.
She tells her mother when she's younger, because her mother cooks meatloaf when she's mad at her because she knows Anna hates meatloaf, and she tells her mother that she hates her, and ends up having to run and hide to in the bathroom because it's the only door with a lock, so her father doesn't beat her.
She doesn't go into detail if you have a problem with that, but she does say that there is a belt involved and that it was very painful and agonizing. So again, I think the author does a very good job of letting you know what's happening without becoming borderline insulting.
Unfortunately, it happened to a lot of people.
Right.
And if it did happen to you, or you knew someone it happened to, you wouldn't want to read details about it. So she lets you know that it's happening, but doesn't push it too far.
I think she's very good with describing Anna's feelings, like I said, because I've had panic attacks, and the way she described Anna's panic attacks is the exact thing that's happened to me. So maybe she's spot on with all the other things that I'm not used to experiencing.
Yes. Let us continue.
Everything's going hunky-dory in the book. We're all liking everything that happens, and then chapter 7 happens. I did not like chapter 7. In this chapter, we're in Caleb's head again. He's in his room stressing over pushing Anna away, beating himself up for telling her about the mission too early. And then all of a sudden, Anna appears in his room. She's there to apologize. They apologize to each other. She starts looking around his room to see the items. Caleb feels like she's looking at him naked, blah, 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 because, you know, his personal feelings are all up on the wall. And they have a moment where they almost kiss. I really don't like being in Caleb's head. I think the writing diminishes a lot when she's with Caleb. I don't know if she's just trying to find a difference between the two characters, so there's not so much similarities between them. But I feel like Caleb does not explain his emotions at all. He uses the word pretty repetitively to the point where I cannot stand when he calls her pretty anymore. Because that's all he does. Your hair is pretty. Your face is pretty. But Anna, you're just so pretty.
I disagree. I like Caleb's head as well. I just feel like he's too insta-love with
Yes.
her. It's too much. She doesn't focus as much on how she feels about Caleb as Caleb focuses on how he feels about Anna.
Alright.
But at the same time, he is supposed to be very one-track minded because it's supposed to be very difficult for him to be in a human body after being in heaven.
Right.
And he's supposed to be focusing on Anna.
You would think an angel would be more in touch with their feelings.
Well, I always think about it as, like, I think about Supernatural when the angels are in the bodies there. They're always very, like, emotionless.
She believes Caleb is an angel.
Already, for no reason.
Yeah. He doesn't really talk about it or try to force her on her anymore because he's afraid to scare her off. But when he kind of briefly mentions it, she's like, okay, it could be true.
Where we were so excited that she was being so strong about him, all of a sudden she's just in his room hugging him.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because the new medicine she's on, because this is the day she does start taking her panic attack medicine. I don't know if it's the relief
and
of
if
the
there's the
panic
Dr.
attacks.
Blackwell thing, maybe he's put a little something extra in
Maybe.
there.
But maybe it's the combination of both, that she's relieved she's not having panic attacks anymore. She doesn't feel as tied down and she kind of goes willy-nilly. I don't know, but I do feel like there is some small reasoning for her to pull a 180 and versus it just happening out of nowhere, but I still don't like it.
So now we are going to get started with chapter 8. Basically what happens in this chapter is Anna is sitting outside reflecting on her meeting with Dr. Blackwell. Caleb comes up and starts talking to her, and they kind of try to get a little bit more insight into each other's lives. He talks about being an angel, she talks about being depressed and panic attacky, and then she notices this big man staring at her. Caleb quickly tells her to ignore him, but eventually he comes over and calls her a whore, a cheating whore, I believe, and smacks her in the face, and Caleb and him start fighting, and I think she gets hit one more time during
In
the
the
fight.
shoulder blade,
And
yeah.
the end of the chapter is Caleb being taken away, like, no, I need to figure out what's wrong. I need to figure out if she's okay. Just ask her if she's okay.
And then she blacks out.
I liked it. Really upset that we had to end at that point because I really wanted to know if the guy was maybe some kind of demon or if he was just a crazy person mistaking Anna for someone else.
I like the scene, I like the action of the scene, but Anna's reaction I was a little disappointed in. Immediately she hides behind Caleb when the guy starts to stalk over to them, and then
Caleb pushes her behind him.
yeah, but she lets him. And then when she finds out that Caleb might get hurt is when she steps out and was like confronting him, which I was proud of her for that. But then she gets slapped and she gets punched in the shoulder blade, and come on, she blacks out from that. I mean, come on.
It's a big guy.
That's a little weak. I mean, hopefully when we come back, she has some kind of damage besides a bruise. Hit pretty hard in the shoulder before, and I've never blacked
Not
out
smacked
from
in the
it.
face, though.
Smack in the face does got to suck, but
you can black out. If a big old man came up and smacked you in the face, you black out, Stacey.
I don't know if I black out, but
Yeah, but you could.
I just wish
I had
she
no
would have.
disappointment in her.
I
in
wish
there.
she would have stayed conscious.
Well, if a big guy was coming up to me looking like he was gonna hurt me, calling me a whore, I'd hide behind a guy too. I don't care if I am a strong girl or not. Little tiny girl can't take on big man.
I agree with that. I
Just like
agree with that.
little
She
tiny girl couldn't
should.
take on big woman either.
Predictions, Jessica. What do you have? Predict.
I really don't
Would you
know.
predict?
The book can go so many different ways at this point. I'm still a little shaky on whether or not Caleb's an angel, though.
I know. That's my biggest thing. Like, do you want him to be an angel? That's my biggest question.
Do
Like,
I want him to be an angel?
Yes.
Yes. Is he actually an angel? At my guess right now, no.
I don't know. I think the story might be more interesting if she finds out he's not an angel. So I'm kind of torn on if I want him to be an angel or not. My YA girly fangirl side wants him to be an angel. But I've read so many books like that already that it would be interesting to see what happens if he was not an angel.
See, in my head, this is a pretty good book so far, and if he's not an angel, the book is over at this point. Or not the book, but the series, because you really can't go on with him not being an angel.
Do you want Caleb to be an angel or do you want him to be insane? Down below is the best question I could come up with. My predictions are I think that Dr. Blackwell is a bad guy and I think he's going to come into play. So far I think that Caleb is an angel and that that big burly man who beat him up is a demon trying to defer his course. Okay, so we hope that you did join us for the chapter by chapter, and thanks for watching. See you next week on Sunday.